Okay, welcome back. So what we can see now, we can see the rifle scope mounted on the barrel, and what you should be able to see there is a small spirit level on the top of the scope, and also one on the spur mount itself. So how did we get there? What I'm going to do is show you how to build and put the scope onto the rifle, keep it dead level, and the particular way of tightening the screws so that we don't damage the screws or the mount or the scope itself. So the tools we need for the task of mounting the scope ideally is a torque wrench. This is a very good torque wrench by Kennedy Tools. Quite expensive, but very worthwhile. This is a digital one which is sold by Optics Warehouse. Again, torque wrench. We can also use a combination tool or Allen key set. Now we need a Torx screw head to fit this mount rather than standard Allen key, but there is a technique where you can use the Allen key itself. The only problem is, the danger is with these mounts is over tightening the screws, particularly when you mount it to the rail itself and when you actually mount the scope rings onto the scope. It's common amongst the military for people to over tighten them, and also sometimes there's a lot of problems because people haven't tightened them enough where the scope becomes loose. So a Torx wrench is probably the best and most effective method of mounting it on. We've also taken, this is a cheap little spirit level which I'm going to use, and on the spur mount, again, they've cleverly thought about it and they've put a spirit level here in the rear of the actual mount itself. So that's be very useful for what I'm going to do. So what we need to do is determine where we're going to put it for eye reading. So with experience, I'm going to count 3 Picatinny pieces and then I'm going to put my mount on there. This is a correct setting for myself. Obviously a bigger guy or someone who's got a different shaped head might need to move that backwards or forwards. Once that's in place, notice the direction it's in. The spirit level is rearwards. Then I'm going to tighten up. I'm going to use the digital torque wrench and it needs to be set at 4 Newton meters. I'm going to do the 2 middle ones first. And remember what I'm doing, what you can't really see there, is I'm not just putting it on, but I'm putting it pressure. We want the recoil lug on the mount to be pushed up against the Picatinny recess. So as well as holding it on, I'm actually pushing it forwards slightly. Probably can't really see that, but that's what I'm doing. It's under pressure forwards and obviously down. So once these are in place, then I'm just going to confirm the torque setting. Correct. So just quickly, if you didn't have a torque setting and you was in the field, but you had an Allen key set like this, the sort of engineering technique to use is to take your Allen key and tighten it like so. It's at the right angle, tighten it like that. That way you can't really break the screw, in theory, okay? And obviously, once it's in that position, it's at the correct setting. But once you've got the angle on, that's good. You just feel the slight extra turn, okay? But of course, we're going to just stick with the torque wrench, which is far more simplistic. So we take the scope. With a lot of these new things, sometimes a tiny little bit of oil is quite good. I've used a bit of WD-40, so we're just going to place it on, like so. We can move it backwards or forwards, depends on the eye relief. So I'm going to put it in the middle to give us the maximum amount of movement. So the weapon should be dead square, which is what it is. Now I've already prepared this what I've done, I've undone the bipod lock and got the rifle square. So actually, this Allen key at the rear, sorry, this spirit level at the rear is exactly flush and level. So it means the rifle is level on this tabletop. What I need to do now is take another spirit level, put it on the top of the scope, and then get the scope level within the mount itself. Of course, once we start fitting the rings on, then we need to keep an eye on this. Now there is a technique to fit in the rings as well. So the ring's obviously going to go forward and back. Oh. Again, we take the Allen key, put them in place. Always worth starting in the top corner. Okay, we're just going to nip that. We're not going to do it too tight for a minute. Take another screw, and then we notice we're going to go for the bottom left-hand fixture. This is evenly spread in the mount. Again, just nipped it tight. Take the other ring, pop out one of the screws. Again, we're starting top left corner. And then bottom right hand. This seems to be the logical and the most effective way of mounting it on. Okay, so once we're in position, so we're checking the spirit levels again. Very important. Top level's good, the rear level is good. Then I'm going to nip these up. Checking the spirit level isn't moving throughout the nipping process. With some cheaper mounts, you could get movements. You've got to keep an eye on this. With this spur mount, and like some of the others, like the AI mount, and some of the other scope manufacturers, solid mounts they supply the scopes with, you don't get any movement. There we go. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. So all we need to do now is put the remaining screws into it. Again, we're following a bit of a sequence, starting in the corner, and the final ones we're going to put in will be the middle runs. Now I'm going to put the middle ones in. Okay, so that's the final one. So that's all the screws in place now. Finally, we just check the spirit level on the top, spot on, and the rear one spot on. So there we are, that scope's mounted on nice and neat. So what if we don't have spirit levels we can use? We can buy them. This is US Optics, quite a good spirit level. It's got a little cap which will protect the glass when it protrudes from the side of a rifle. Of course, when it's fitted, it would be fitted onto the Picatinny like this, because you're operating a bolt on this side. But again, quite a good little spirit level there. So this goes directly onto the rail. So this is how we level the rifle. The other one we have, again, fairly cheap. You can pick these up quite easily. Again, a little spirit level in there. Now this one will actually go on the scope itself. And as you can see, as I'm leveling up, the bubble will level based upon the position of the scope. So we could have this on the mount and have this actually fitted permanently on the scope. This is to aid with setting up. Now when in this configuration now, to confirm the rifle is dead level, we've got on the mount itself. But you could also have an extra one if you really wanted. Probably not.